On the morning of December 6, 1917, the city of Halifax woke up like any other day. Children hurried to school. Factory workers filled the streets. Sailors prepared their ships for another ordinary morning in one of Canada's busiest harbours. Nothing seemed unusual. The water was calm. The sky was clear. Then two ships slowly began moving toward each other. People noticed them, but no one paid much attention. Small accidents happened in busy harbours all the time. When the ships finally collided, the impact seemed almost harmless. There was no massive explosion, no panic, just twisted metal and a fire. Dark smoke started rising into the cold morning sky. Instead of running away, people walked closer to watch. Families gathered along the waterfront. Workers stopped what they were doing. Children pointed toward the burning ship. Some people even climbed onto rooftops and balconies for a better view. No one realized that one of those ships was carrying thousands of tons of highly explosive cargo. The growing fire looked fascinating, but every passing second brought the city closer to disaster. Within moments, Halifax would witness the largest man-made explosion the world had ever seen before the atomic bomb. The fire continued to spread across the deck. Thick, black smoke poured into the sky, visible from every corner of the city. Crowds kept growing along the waterfront. People believed they were watching nothing more than a dramatic accident. No one knew the burning ship was the French cargo vessel Mont-Blanc. Hidden inside its steel hull were thousands of tons of military explosives. TNT picric acid, gun cotton, enough explosive power to destroy an entire city. The crew understood the danger immediately. They abandoned the ship and desperately rowed toward shore. As they reached land, they shouted warnings to everyone they could find. Run! Get away from the harbour. But almost nobody listened. Most people couldn't hear them. Others didn't believe them. The burning ship slowly drifted closer to the busy pier, carrying disaster directly into the heart of Halifax. At 9:04 that morning, time ran out. The fire reached the deadly cargo in a single blinding flash. The Mont-Blanc exploded. The blast was unlike anything the world had ever witnessed. A massive fireball rose high above Halifax. The shockwave raced through the city faster than the speed of sound. Buildings collapsed in seconds. Windows shattered for miles. Steel rails twisted. Ships were thrown onto the shore like toys. People standing near the harbour disappeared instantly. Others were hurled through the air by the force of the explosion. For several terrifying moments, many survivors believed the entire world had exploded. A cloud of smoke and dust swallowed the city. Silence followed. Then came the screams. In less than 10 seconds, Halifax had become one of the worst disasters in modern history. When the smoke finally began to clear, Halifax was almost unrecognizable. Entire neighborhoods had vanished. Thousands of homes were destroyed or badly damaged. Streets were buried beneath broken bricks, shattered glass, and twisted steel. Fires burned across the city. Survivors wandered through the ruins searching for their families. Many could not recognize the places where they had lived only minutes before. Then another danger appeared. The explosion had created a powerful wave that rushed back into the harbor. Ships were lifted by the water and thrown onto the shore. People who had escaped the blast suddenly found themselves running again. Across the city, doctors, nurses, firefighters, and ordinary citizens fought to save anyone they could. But the disaster was not over yet. That night, a powerful snowstorm began covering Halifax. Rescuers would soon face an enemy they never expected. By nightfall, Halifax faced a new disaster. A powerful snowstorm swept across the shattered city. Snow covered the ruins. Freezing winds cut through the broken streets. Many survivors were trapped beneath collapsed buildings. Every hour without rescue meant another life could be lost. Still, the rescuers refused to stop. Doctors worked without rest. Nurses treated the injured wherever they could. Firefighters searched through piles of broken stone and twisted steel. Ordinary citizens joined the rescue effort, digging with their bare hands. Then help began arriving from outside Halifax. Rescue trains pushed through the snow, carrying doctors, nurses, medicine, food, and blankets. Entire communities came together to help a city they had never expected to save. By morning, the true scale of the disaster was finally becoming clear. What had started as a small fire aboard one ship had become one of the deadliest disasters in Canadian history. As investigators searched through the ruins, one question echoed across Canada: how could a single ship destroy an entire city? The answer was hidden inside the cargo of the Mont-Blanc. The French steamship had been loaded with thousands of tons of military explosives: TNT, picric acid, benzol, gun cotton. The cargo was meant for the battlefields of Europe during the First World War. Once the fire reached those explosives, there was no way to stop what followed. The blast released energy unlike anything most people had ever imagined. It was powerful enough to flatten entire neighborhoods. The explosion could be heard more than 200 kilometers away. The shockwave shattered windows across distant towns. Even today, the Halifax Explosion remains one of the largest non-nuclear explosions ever caused by humans. It became a disaster the world would never forget, even if few people remember it today. In the months that followed, Halifax slowly began to rebuild. Families returned to streets that no longer looked familiar. New homes replaced the ruins. New schools welcomed children once again. But the city would never be the same. The explosion forced governments and shipping companies to rethink how dangerous cargo was transported. New safety rules were introduced. Harbors around the world studied what had happened in Halifax. The disaster became a warning that could never be ignored again. Every lesson learned had been paid for with thousands of lives. Yet something else was born from the tragedy. Every year, the people of Nova Scotia send a Christmas tree to the city of Boston. It is a symbol of gratitude. In 1917, when Halifax needed help the most, Boston was among the first to answer. More than a century later, that friendship is still remembered. More than 100 years have passed since the Halifax explosion. The city was rebuilt. The harbour became busy once again. New generations grew up where destruction once covered the streets. But the memory of that morning never disappeared. It remains one of the darkest days in Canadian history. The Halifax explosion reminds us how quickly an ordinary day can become a tragedy. It also reminds us that courage often appears when people need it most. Firefighters, doctors, nurses, volunteers, ordinary families who refuse to give up. Their actions saved countless lives. Today, visitors walk through Halifax without realizing what happened there in 1917. Yet beneath the modern streets, the memory of that disaster still lives. Because history is not only remembered through monuments, it is remembered through the lives that were changed forever. And that is why, more than a century later, the Halifax explosion remains a story the world should never forget.